Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Everyday Strong with Dr. Michael G. Daniels. This is your host, CB Baker. We got a good one today. We're going to be covering in a two-part episode here. We're going to be covering COVID-19 updates and the protesting for police reform in America. So we'll probably be going in and out because some of these things are, Dr. Daniels, intertwined. One is connected to another. And I know for one thing, a lot of people are worried about the coronavirus having an uptick due to people protesting and being in close proximity to one another, without mask on.
Right. Yes.
Want to talk about that. And I also want to talk about the seemingly importance of wearing a mask. Is, the studies are coming out saying that people that wear masks or places that people are wearing masks, the numbers are lower versus the places that people are not wearing masks. So welcome to the show, Dr. Daniels.
Thank you. And you're right. Unfortunately, we do have two pandemics, and that's kind of like how they've been described, right? One pandemic is COVID-19, and the other pandemic is racism in America. It's just that we have not labeled racism and the inequities as a pandemic. But if you think about the long-term impact, it really is, because racism and inequality kill blacks just like the pandemic killed blacks. We just don't like to think about it that way.
Right.
But that's really is the reality of it. And so I think that the two are intertwined, because of that. And then, like you said, as far as the pandemic with the protests, people are not always thinking about social distancing. And so many people are not wearing masks. And so that also has a tendency to increase the spread of COVID-19, which is more devastating to people in our communities, because if you have sickle cell, if you have diabetes, those kind of underlying situation, it is problematic. And for some reason, we are beginning, as you pointed out earlier, we're becoming fatigued to COVID-19.
Right.
So people are, well, I know I should be safe, but there's a large swath of people that seemingly don't care about safety anymore.
Right. Yeah, it is. I recently flew out to Las Vegas, and like I said before, and off camera, I was talking, and it seems like there's three different types of people. There's the people that are very serious about the whole pandemic, and there's people that's in the middle that say, hey, I'm going to do my part, but I'm not going to go overboard. And then you have the third person who just doesn't care and thinks the whole entire thing is fake, and they just walk around, no mask on, touching everything, ready to come up and hug on you, or like be in line right behind you, breathing down your neck, and like, look, back up, it's like, okay,
right.
And our black people, Dr. Daniels, I feel like in most instances, young black people are not taking this thing very serious, because a lot of times when I go places, even if I just go down to Virginia Beach, and walk around, even though you don't have to wear a mask outside, you hardly ever see people of color wearing a mask outside, especially young people, and they're like walking in groups,
right.
together, which could cause a problem, but you have that going on. So what is your thought process of why us as a community, we won't take things like this like super serious?
Well, if I were to use Solomon and his take from Ecclesiastes, I would say that they are fools. And that's how he defined them, is that they are fools. Anytime you defy evidence and logic, really that makes you a fool. So what is it about young people? Young people think they are invincible, and I think that's a large part of it. And they listen to what people say about, the effect on young people is not as devastating as it is on older people. But they don't know. Now, that's the thing that people have to consider. We don't know the long-term effects of what happens to you once you have been affected and infected by COVID-19. In fact, there's a large group of people who have overcome the most difficult parts of the virus and are now negative, but still have long-term effects because of it.
Right.
And so, you can't just say, well, because it's not something happening now. We don't know what the future holds. This is something that we have not really fully began to understand. And so people are putting themselves in harm's way because they are, again, if I look at how Solomon put it, people value fun over being rational. And so that thing of I must do it now, I must have fun now, that's vanity. He says all is vanity because the reality is that you don't want to put yourself in a difficult place and just hope nothing happens to you. I kind of look at this the same way I look at HIV and AIDS, right? When HIV/AIDS first came out, people were afraid.
Right.
It was like, okay, the pregnancy rate dropped because folk were wearing prophylactics and
right.
people, were being in monogamous relationship. But then they got HIV fatigue.
Right.
And boom. That went from prophylactics, that went all that kind of stuff.
Right,
and,
right.
And the infection rate skyrocketed in the Black community. I mean, just skyrocketed in the Black community. I think that same mindset has hit us when it comes to COVID-19.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is it seems like the best defense against it is just wearing a mask.
Well, studies have shown, right, if you don't wear a mask and you cough, let's say, that the moisture projectiles will go anywhere between 8 to 12 feet. And that's a pretty good distance if you're coughing. Just talking, they say, it will go up to 6 feet. But coughing up to 8 to 12 feet without a mask. If you wear a scarf, right, then they'd say that it reduces, substantially to, I think it was like maybe 2 feet or something like that. If you wear a surgical type mask, then it reduces it more. But ironically, the cloth mask that is layered is the best protection.
Yeah.
That's the one where they say the projectile only goes out about 1.5 inches. So the reality is, if you really want to be safe, as far as making sure we don't spread the virus, then young people ought to wear a mask. This is what I'm surprised at. Normally in our community, in the Black community, we will take a negative and make it a positive. Mm-hmm. We'll take something that the world has rejected and we'll make it a fashion statement.
Right.
That's what we'll do. When people were talking about nappy heads and you don't comb your hair, Black folks said, you know what? I can just stop combing my hair and I'll make it a fashion statement,
right,
and that's
right.
what they did. When we didn't have money to buy a lot of dress pants, right? We just took jeans and made a fashion statement out of jeans. I am shocked that some Black person hasn't come up with the idea of making a fashion statement out of mask.
Yeah.
And, and in doing so, that would prompt young people to want to wear a mask. That's what I'm surprised at. That some entrepreneur, maybe I'm the entrepreneur that needs to do it.
That needs to do it, right.
But look at all the money you would make, because most of the masks you see that you see advertised on TV are bland. They're black.
Right.
You got the copper fit mask, which is black.
Right.
No pop to it, whatever. But what if Kanye?
Yeah.
Or someone like Kanye? What if a Puffy Comb? Had their own brand of masks. What if and I think there's the other folk that the Black entrepreneur that makes clothes, for Blacks only or something like that, or Black.
I'm talking about Damon John,
right? Yeah. What if he were to integrate that into his line,
right.
of clothing? It would be a windfall for everybody.
Yeah.
Because once we make it popular, then the young white folk gonna jump right on board.
Yeah. I've seen people with, basically, homemade stuff trying to do something. It is shocking that the clothing lines out there have not jumped. Major brands haven't just said, you know what, let's repurpose, the material that we have and just get masks made.
Right. And get people on the runway, walking down the runway, sporting
right.
the mask and whatnot,
Yeah.
I'm just shocked that they haven't done that. But like you say, you know, I mean, I'm the kind of person that I'm going to wear a mask when I'm out. You know, I'm going to wear a mask when I'm out because of the underlying health conditions that I have. And I know I'm vulnerable. Number one, I've been black all my life. Okay. I didn't just start getting black yesterday.
Right.
I'm over 60, you know. I have a compromised immune system because of a blood disorder that I have. I mean, I'm healthy with it, but it still can be compromised, you know.
Right.
And so, you know, I have those situations going on. And when, fortunately for me, for example, is that, you know, because of this COVID-19 and this struggle that we've had with China, whereas a part of where the medication that I need comes from, I was out of medication for almost a month, you know, and my situation became quite dire. So for me personally, I'm going to try to protect me as much as I can.
Right.
Because, you know, even though this is a wicked, evil world we live in, it's the only world I know.
Right.
So I do want to stay here just a little while longer and deal with some things. But to me, mass just makes sense. It's, you know, let me tell you, like, for example, you know, I went to the bank a week or so ago, and I go into the bank and you know, because you got to get an appointment now to go on the inside, as you know. I go inside and I'm talking with the branch manager, and she says to me, "Things sure have changed." She said, "Look at how the world is when a black man could come in a bank with a mask on and be greeted with a smile."
Said, you ain't lying.
I said, "Yeah, you're right. Things sure have changed, you know." But, you know, see, to me, that's how we all ought to look at it, you know. Like when I go to a restaurant, which I haven't been in a while to sit down, obviously, but of course now, as of July 1, you can start going back. I don't like the idea of my waiters and waitresses not wearing masks anyway.
Yeah.
Because you carrying my food and you talking to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, you know, and you saying hi, you greeting people. There's no way your saliva is not coming out of your mouth when you're bringing my food to my table.
That's correct.
That means it's getting in my food.
Yep.
So to me, I think that ought to be permanent, not just for COVID-19, but permanent as a health thing.
Yeah.
That waiters and waitresses should always be required to wear a mask to bring your food.
Yeah. I know Dr. Fauci had mentioned that he wishes that people would stop shaking hands. He's always said that, you know, because he said that's the fastest way for, you know, disease and viruses to, you know, basically spread.
Right. Yeah.
And you know, and it's another thing. It's hard for black people. It's hard for black men to not dap each other up. It's like it's second nature. It's like as soon as you walk through the door, you know, I got to tell myself I can't dap them up. I got to be like, can't dap them up. But if you get out in public and you'll let your guard down a little bit, next day, you know, you dapping people up. That's like, well, I got to go wash my hands now. You know, it's like.
Well, that, you know, see, that was the thing that separated the hip blacks from the Uncle Toms. Really, you know, I mean, starting back in the 60s. Yeah. You know, back in the 60s and the early 70s, it took you about 3 or 4 minutes to shake hands with a brother, you know. But, you know, that's how you knew that was a real brother. If he could go along with all the sequence of shaking your hand, that's a real brother. If he couldn't go along with the sequence, nah, that's Uncle Tom kind of guy. That's how you kind of looked at it. So, you know, that really has been a part of our culture since then. You know, we've long since got away from that regular, you know, how you doing kind of thing. Now, it was boom, 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 do all this kind of stuff, elbow and everything, and doing. It took you longer to say good morning than it did for you to eat breakfast. And it's culture for us because it really, and even though back then we did it because, as I say, it was, are you an Uncle Tom or are you a real red, black, and green brother? Right. But now it's become, are you? I guess, I mean, are you the brother that is real? You know, are you a real brother, or are you just one that has brown or black skin? I think you know that's kind of the way. You know, can I be real with you, or do I have to talk to you and be careful how I transact myself? Right. You know, I think that's kind of the way it is now. You know, if you go to a brother and he don't dap you up, you don't ask him to buy you a drink.
Yeah. No. No, that doesn't happen.
Don't happen. But if he dap you up, then you'd be like, yeah, man, you want a drink or, whatever.
Right.
Well,
now the protesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because we say it's going to intertwine in here.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you feel like we're going to have an uptick in coronavirus cases due to the protests that happened, for the past month or so?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you think there'll be uptick, or do you think, even if there is, do you believe the stats that will come out because of that?
I think there will be an uptick, but I think that there will be less of an uptick because of the protests than there will be because of people sitting in bars drinking, and that there will be from people on the beaches and things like that. And reason why I say that is because for most of the people that were protesting, even though a lot of them did not wear masks, at least they were outdoors.
Right.
So the wind blowing. Then they threw, threw the grenade at you. Right. And so once the grenade came, you were running.
Right.
And so once you were running, the wind, kind of blowing this stuff out of your face. So you really didn't have time to even catch anything at that point in time. But there were people that were yelling, pulling their masks down and yelling and shouting, which would allow for some transmission. So, yeah, do I think that there are going to be some? Yeah. Do I think that that's going to be problematic? And I noticed that on some of the news, some of the right, far right news, they have been comparing that and saying you will let people march in the street, but you won't let people attend church. Yeah. And what's up with that? And, how can you say you have a right to assemble for protest, but you don't have a right to assemble for worship? And I get it. That's a fair argument. That is a fair argument. So perhaps they should have looked at it a different way and said, if you're going to protest, you must be 6 feet apart. But then we would have protested, making us be 6 feet apart.
Right.
But yeah, unfortunately, I think, it's going to end up showing up. I wish it wouldn't, but I think it will. And I think a part of that rise, especially like in Washington, D.C., places like that, I think it's probably the result of protesting. But the irony of it, too, is that there are some places where you had huge protests, you see no uptick.
Right. That's what now, okay, for the Everyday Strong audience, I want everybody to put your tinfoil hat on. We're going down the conspiracy lane.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you believe the numbers to be right?
The death numbers or the infection numbers?
The infection numbers and the cases.
I think the case numbers are underestimated.
You think so?
Yeah, I think they're underestimated. Because here's why I say that. I can't see the value to the people that are tracking the numbers for them to not give the numbers properly.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because where you get the numbers are assembled by the local health departments. That's their charge, right? Based on their charter. And where are they getting their numbers from? From the hospitals and people that are doing the testing, right? And then they compile them, then they send them, off. And right now, Johns Hopkins has the contract for the federal government. That's what the appearance is when you look at all the data.
Right.
That they have that job of compiling everything, right?
Right.
So I don't know if it would be a benefit to them to inflate the numbers because they're going to get the same amount of money.
Gotcha.
If you add them up and they say it's 20,
right,
you're not going to get less money if you add it up and say it's 5.
Right.
Because your job is to just keep track of them. The other reason why I think so is I look at our president, right? Our president and how the vice president keeps saying that it's contained.
Mm-hmm.
So since they keep saying it's contained and the CDC is under his jurisdiction, there's no way if these numbers were inflated that he would not come out and say these numbers are wrong, that really there's only 20 people that's infected,
Right.
So that's why, because the more people that are infected, it's an inverse relationship to the health of the economy.
Yeah.
So, and that's his prime objective. So that's why I don't think they are inflated. I think they are underrepresented because you're not testing everybody.
Right.
So that means you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
That means there must be a lot of people that you don't know are infected.
Right. And I had said months ago that if you tested everybody and then most of the people come back, positive, you have almost mass hysteria. So, because people would be worried about what's going on. But now when they give you the choice, hey, if you want to get tested, go get tested. But wait a minute. If you don't have any symptoms, because we're low on tests, don't come in and get a test, if you may be asymptomatic, but we really don't want to know that you're asymptomatic. We just want you to just wear a mask. It's like, I think what the issue, I'm going to go flip the pancake. I think part of the issue could be that what if the mass number of people have it and the death number is so low, then people just don't care anymore. Well,
you're right. That could be a possibility, because then you might be, this is all the people that died. Hey, but I look at it slightly different. On average, we are 1,000 people a day are dying of COVID-19 on average.
Right.
What other ailment is there in this country where on average 1,000 people die every day? None.
Yeah.
Now, but see, for example, 1,000 people a day don't die from 1,000 people a day don't die from cancer, but we still wear sunscreen because we don't want to catch skin cancer.
Right.
1,000 people a day don't die from heart attacks. However, people are out jogging all the time trying to keeping their heart healthy.
Right.
So, but I get you. Your point is well taken. And there are going to be some folk that are going to say, hey, it ain't killing me. So, da-da-da-da-da. I think that our president made a huge mistake. And this is not because I think he is not a good president. I think because he did not follow good advice. He should have mandated everybody in the country get tested. The 2 weeks that we were out, see, this is what I think he should have did. They should have ramped up and had enough tests made for everybody in the country. And then shut the place down for 2 weeks.
Right.
Not before you had testing. Waited until you had enough testing, forced everybody to take the test mandatory, and shut the place down for 2 weeks. You would have known in 2 weeks who's infected.
Yeah.
Then took those people, quarantined them, made it mandatory for them to be quarantined, and let everybody else out go and do what they wanted to do.
Right. That's right.
In 2 weeks, it'd have been over with. But we didn't do that.
No, we didn't.
So we got what we got. Other countries didn't do that. Think about South Korea. When South Korea had their first case, they put everybody on lockdown.
Yeah.
They tested people. They tested gobs of people. They went through the streets with, disinfecting the streets, disinfecting the parks, disinfecting everything. Their rate plummeted. But we didn't do that. We just had excuses.
Yeah.
Now we got what we got.
The ironic thing is when I was at Vegas and I was walking down the street and I told my wife, I said, this don't make no sense. She said, what are you talking about? I said, the sidewalk is dirty. Vegas been closed, like closed for a month and a half.
More.
Right.
More.
How's the sidewalk dirty? Like, you could have somebody come out here and power wash the sidewalk. It should be crystal clean out here.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you ain't got nothing else going. Like the casino, you get all this money now. You can't hire Jimmy to go out there with the power washer,
right?
To spray down the sidewalk.
The city should have did it,
right?
But see, we didn't do. That's what we didn't do what other countries did,
right?
And that's why now, if you are a United States citizen, that's why you cannot go to France right now.
Right.
You cannot go to Europe, to the Union, and in those countries that's in the EU, because they're saying, you know what, United States does not have the foresight nor the intelligence to reduce their rate of infection. So therefore, we don't want you to come visit our country until you get it right. Anytime people turn down money,
yeah,
and they get more money from American tourists than anywhere else, and they're saying, we don't want your dollars because your dollars might be infected with COVID-19. And that's, that's
Right.
kind of what they're saying to us.
Right.
That speaks volumes about whether or not these numbers are legitimate.